Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Welcome to my show, and I'm thrilled to have in studio as my co-host today, Marie Diaz. She's a serial entrepreneur, author, speaker. Thank you for co-hosting with me.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today.
All right, this is a long-time relationship of yours, so I'm going to let you introduce our guest.
Well, let me introduce Steve Jamieson. Sorry, sounded like her mother for a moment, didn't I?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's okay, I miss my mom, that's right.
And so, Steve, you have a thriving company, WorkingSocial. Tell us about that.
It's a company that I would say that I started because I got a chance to help all the people I used to compete with now help win.
Wow, I love that. We were asking you off the air on, what is your elevator speech, and you said something powerful. When people say, "What do you do, Steve?" What do you say?
Yeah, I help people win. That the number one thing that people forget about strategy is that the end goal is to win. It's not about the process. It's not about being the smartest guy in the room. It is literally about success, and success means winning. And that's a very different type of strategy than advice. What I always say is consultants would tell you what you shouldn't do, but a strategist has to tell you what you should do. And that's much harder to achieve.
Jerry Jones, if you're watching, this is the man who can help you win.
We need a couple of those in Dallas, don't we?
Well, Marie, what do you have for Steve?
Well, you said something very interesting. You said success is different, and I'm a firm believer that success means something different at different points in your life. So my question is really, what if you had to think about what if?
What's more important than what if, or the only way you can figure out what your what if is to look at what your what is. Because throughout my career, I was one time a talent agent and worked with some of the most famous and successful people. And then for many years, I worked in direct sales, where people were looking at a second chance to have the success they never had the first time in their life. And I can tell you there was very little distinction. And the difference is everyone has a what is if they look at their lives. And that's what determines the belief about what their what if is. So what my job has been, I realized in my whole life, once I got off trying to get my own dreams to come true and focus on helping other people, it was to teach them really where in life their what is, and then open the possibilities of what if, and then help them to go on that journey.
Kind of bridge that gap between?
Correct. And most people get stuck in the what is, that they've lost belief in that there is a what if, or they set that what if so small.
Right.
That there's not much difference between the journey of where they started and where they're going to end up because they've lost that faith. One of the things that I used to say is that, when we're kids, we like to dream. No parent ever says to a kid, don't dream.
Right.
But when you're an adult and you have a dream, they go, you're foolish.
Right.
Right? So we don't call it a dream anymore, we call it an idea. But people don't act upon ideas. Ideas are distant. They don't understand that process.
Do you think it's because perhaps the dream is something so close to the heart where a goal or a task is just it separates itself?
I think the number one problem for people is they just don't believe in themselves anymore. The journey doesn't build people up, it usually takes people down.
Right.
And unless you have a support system in place that is constantly pushing you forward, but the problem is the people in our life who love us the most, they always want to protect us. They protect us from risk. Well, if you protect us from risk, you protect us from reward.
Right, so that concept of failing forward kind of is applicable here. Make sure that you have that frame of thought that it's okay to fail because you're
Right.
following a dream,
Yeah.
perhaps.
I'll give you an example. Is what I always teach people is I always ask somebody, what's their non-negotiable commitment in life that they do every day? Not something they're going to learn how to do. And they always go, well, what do you mean that? I said, well, let's just say you're a single mom. Your kid is 2 years old. One thing you're certain every single day is your kid is going to be hungry. You have a non-negotiable commitment to make sure that you're going to feed that kid 2 times a day, 3 times a day, whatever's required. It's not a debate. And so how come everyone can figure out how to do that, but they can't figure out how to do something bigger,
Right.
something more impactful, something more life-changing? We set the bar so low, and yet we're so good at whatever bar we set.
Right.
And
So
so
let-
getting people out of survival mode and getting people back into a what-if mode is why 5% of the people are the ones who chase 95% of the dreams.
So let's talk about some role models, people that we can all aspire to. I mean, Oprah, she's a risk taker, right? I mean, at one point she was a newscaster,
Right.
and now she, by many standards, is the most powerful woman in entertainment. What did she do right?
I think her best quality is her curiosity. Isn't it interesting that she interviews her best friends, but yet it seems like it's the first time she's ever spoken to them? And in some ways that is authentic, because she finds what's interesting to her. She's not telling you what the audience thinks they want to hear. She's asking you what she wants to know that she didn't know about Jennifer Aniston,
Right.
About the people who are closest to her.
Right.
She can still be incredibly interesting. And so that's where I think that she has, her own curiosity impacts her own life more than anybody else's.
And she never stops. I mean, it was enough that she had her #1 TV show. She decided, let's do a network. Let's
Right.
do a magazine.
Right. And it's interesting, more people are disappointed that she doesn't go further. Right? How many people wanted her to run for elected office
Yes,
or get behind a
yes.
political issue? And it's like, oh, if only Oprah would get involved.
Right.
Right? Is that kind of magnetism is, again, authenticity, no limitations. There is
Fearless, that kind of fearless mentality.
non-negotiable. She's always living in what if, when other people are living in what is.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what if, because I know that's near and dear to your heart. You've got several things in the works related to what is. What if.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, I love the concept of what if. I wrote a book called If You Knew You Couldn't Fail, What Would You Do? And it's really about minimizing, or if you can, just taking those limiting beliefs of why you can't and taking that out of your mind and saying, well, what if? And if you didn't have any limiting beliefs, where would you be? So I really like what you said about bridging the gap between what is and what if. But how do people really do that? And so I know in my experience, when I've had different speaking engagements or working with different type of individuals on their companies and just personally, if you take that fear factor away, and you make them feel comfortable. And it's probably one of the reasons why I really invested in restaurants and really love the creative thought there, is because it is a creative. It is something that you really enjoy. And when you can see the little sparkle in someone's eyes and you know that they're passionate about it, and I think that's really what happens is they forget the passion. And but when you're passionate, then those what if moments come, right?
So, it's funny. I always think if I was in the audience, I want to be able to take away something as opposed to just be inspired, right? How does someone inspire themselves, right? It shouldn't just be our story, what we've accomplished. We don't want them to leave today going, well, God, he was impressive, he was nice, he was smart, because the show needs to be about them.
Right.
So what's the one thing that I would tell every single person they should do? They should be a thief. Do you know why? But not steal money,
Right.
not steal somebody
We're
else's
clarifying
dream.
here.
Steal the information. We live in the information age. There are no secrets. Everybody knows everything about everyone. The secret to success is take what other people have done. Take their knowledge, take their information. What do we not know about Mark Cuban? What do we not know about Donald Trump, good or bad, right?
Right.
We know everything they've done. We know everything they do. We live in the information age. That's the secret to success of why so many people today can go from zero to hero, is because the answers are available. If you have the belief and you set the bar high, you do something different when you wake up in the morning.
So what is a little nugget that someone can take away to minimize those limiting beliefs? Because even though we talk about those are limiting beliefs, erase them, but they still come back as habits. So what is something that you can give, perhaps?
Second most important thing, right? So number one, steal the nuggets from the people you know. And that's the key. There's a great line that by somebody named Jim Rohn.
Like Jim.
And the best line that he ever said was, you become the average of the 5 people you hang out the most. So if your circle is not the circle that you want to be in terms of their achievements and their beliefs and their accomplishments, change the circle.
Right.
Join the organizations. I mean, you can go on LinkedIn today and all of a sudden be exposed to people who are all $1 million a year earners, CMOs, CEOs, by simply clicking a button.
Right.
Change your circle.
Right.
Change the information you're exposed to. Change the relationships. Change your dreams. Change your reality. It really is, I'm saying, a click of a button away.
That's powerful.
I
So-
remember someone saying, if you want change, change.
Yeah.
Right? So,
So Steve, what's it like to work with you when somebody's engaging you for the first time? What happens?
Well, the first thing I do is, again, trying to figure out where they're at and why. But usually in the first meeting, within 30 minutes, I've decided where they can go. I don't ask them where they want to go because most people don't know.
Yes.
So what I think that I do well is I understand and can see people's potential long before they can see it for themselves, whether it be individually or whether it be for their business. So when I leave a meeting the first time, it's not about, well, in 90 days later, I'm going to come up with a strategy. It's 90 minutes.
Wow.
And you either buy into my vision
Right.
or you should hire somebody else and work with somebody else, whether that be sales, whether it be marketing, whether it be technology. Again, I don't bring the idea. I also bring the execution. I bring the team. I bring whatever you need because I'm the one that has to believe in you first. That's where you're going to get your belief from. You're going to look at me and go, if he believes in me and he's willing to put that time and effort into me and he sees me in a way that I've never seen before, that's when it's a partnership. So most other people I work with, it's like, oh, I want you to be the best version of who you want to be. No, I'm going to tell you who you should be.
right.
I love it.
And if we're in alignment, we're going to have an impact.
Isn't that so true, though, of most of us, that it just takes one person to believe in who we are and what we want to do, and it kind of gives us that inspiration to press forward.
Like
Yes.
I
I mean,
remember,
just think about what you have done here as well.
Well, I feel so blessed that I've got a team around me that makes my vision brighter.
yeah, I think the hardest thing is I remember when I first came to Dallas,
Yeah.
it was the first time I ever built my own home. The worst possibility was you can build anything you want.
Yes.
Right.
And that's the hardest thing to do, and that's how people approach their lives. They can be anything, they can do anything, so they do nothing.
Yes.
You go into paralysis until somebody says, you know what, here's the house that I see you in. So that's why people hire an architect, not to really design it,
Yes.
but to really put you in the right place.
Do you
And
remember-
people need to be the architects of people's lives as well.
That's interesting you say that. Do you remember, I guess, when you're younger, did you guys ever do collages? Mm-hmm. Right?
No, and I'm
you never
over-
did a collage? Did you do
I
a
did,
collage?
yeah.
I don't think I
was-
would sit still long enough to do it.
I remember doing collages because I think that's for me. My mother was my biggest inspiration, and we just she just grabbed these magazines, and we would just cut away and build like this collage of what. Because sometimes people don't know how to dream. You don't know what you don't know. So that was something for me. What about you? What
Absolutely.
made how did you start dreaming? How did you? Or was it a person? Was it a thing?
It was television. It was film. I was, some kids come home and they turn on the stereo or read a book. I didn't read books. I didn't listen to music. I turned on the TV. And that, to the point where my mother thought I had a problem.
Right.
Why are you so obsessed, on it? But that's where my fantasy was. I didn't know I was watching black and white TV. I thought it was color. That's how vivid it was and important to me. And then my first inspiration was my sister, who ended up, oddly enough, becoming a comedy writer in Los Angeles. And so when I was 19, I moved her, I took the ride cross country to move her for her first job, which was working for Happy Days. And,
Really?
Oh, wow.
and so I got to spend the summer at Paramount Studios. And everything that had been in my room watching on TV, I was watching being filmed.
Wow.
And so I was around for 2 months everyone who just dreamt bigger than what they were doing. Whether you were an actor, you wanted to be a director you wanted to be a writer, a producer, you wanted to own the studio. No one was unsatisfied with their life, but they still dreamt bigger.
Right.
And when I went home that summer, I knew I was going to go back. And I knew that I wanted to be that. And I came from a lower middle class, where everyone, no one graduated college, and everyone was a fireman, a plumber. And I came back with dreams, and they looked at me like, "What? Are you kidding me?"
Right.
Sure, you'll go. That's a phase. You'll go through that. And I still haven't gone through that phase. I'm still in the same place. The only change for me is I just realized that entertainment was a vehicle.
Right.
And that the one thing about sales companies, it was a vehicle for everybody, as opposed to just a vehicle for the very talented. That's where, for me, it was such an easy transition to go from entertainment to find a vehicle that the everyday person
Well, yeah, that's
could be the
interesting.
star.
Because you started off at one point very excited, very passionate. You did it, right? So that was your what if at that time. You just kind of did it. And then you went from there to something else. So what if can change. Things can
Absolutely.
change through time. You don't have to be stuck in a situation. You actually can.
Well, it should always move.
Right.
Because if your what is changes,
Right.
then your what if should change.
Right.
If you're constantly growing, that's what they mean by personal growth and development. It's not personal stop and development, right?
Right.
It's personal growth and development, and it comes because constantly being refreshed by checking on what your what is.
So I think that's so important because a lot of people feel stuck because they've done this, they had some level of success, but in order to rethink the what if, it means they would have to change and do something that possibly or perhaps may not be comfortable. So,
And that's when I look at every failure I've had was just a recheck of what is and what my what if should be. That's when they weren't in alignment is when I had failed. And when there's a point when people go, just keep trying, don't give up. No, sometimes you should give up. The message is you've got the wrong what is and the wrong what if.
Yes.
That's all it is. You don't have to fix you. You just have to fix the way that you're thinking and what you're looking at. And all of a sudden things start to come in alignment. Now all of a sudden the 5 people in your life change. The advice changes, the vision changes, the belief changes, and then finally the results change.
Wow. Well, we've got about 2 minutes left, so I want to give you a chance to talk. We're going to put your website up. So working.social is your website. Tell everybody about, all the contact information is there.
Yeah, it's all there, and actually you can set up a free appointment and talk to me, so that's it. I don't charge people for conversation. I don't charge people for working so hard just to want to find me to do that. And then if we can inspire each other, then we have a further conversation about whatever that may be. And so that's what's kind of worked for me, is just being accessible.
That's
Has to
wonderful.
begin with you. You can't tell other people to do it and then not do it yourself.
And thank you for sharing your gifts with the world. You really do help people win. It's awesome. It's
Thank you.
awesome.
Yes,
Marie, let's
thank
talk
you
about
so
you,
much.
because you got an event coming up.
I do. So thank you so much, Steve. I mean,
Yeah.
that was just such a great story. And it reminds me that we all dream. We all want to do and be what we want to be. But sometimes our own limiting beliefs or whatever the circumstance might be sets us back. So I have a workshop or a lunch and learn and a breakfast breakthroughs, or what we're calling them. And it's called Putting Your Dreams to the Test. So therefore, we can help allow those limiting beliefs to kind of float away.
Yes.
And be in an environment like you just mentioned, change rooms, change and know different people. This will help you provide that environment. So.
And it should always involve food, so you're on the right path.
Yes.
We're gonna, Marie, let's make sure we get your website up. It's mariediaz.com, and they can go on there and sign up for your events or book
Yes.
you to speak.
Yes, absolutely.
That's wonderful. Well, listen, this has been a fast-paced show. We're going to have you both back again soon.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes,
and
thank
you
you.
for co-hosting.
Thank
we
you
did,
so
we did
much. I
well
loved
together. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.
Thank
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks.
This was great.